Boris Johnson, a name you may very well be familiar with, especially if you do follow this channel. If you don't, hit that like and subscribe and follow button. Former Prime Minister, Mayor of London and MP, and also a controversial Brexiteer. And in this video, I'm going to be laying down the cold hard truth of his car crash of an interview on ITV.
Talk about regret. 9% of people think Brexit worked out well. 57% of people think we should go back in.
It's actually depending on the poll between 50 and 60% of Britons wanting to get back into the EU, and around 30 to 37% wanting to stay out, and the rest, I don't know. But in this video, we're going to mainly focus on what he had to say about Brexit. And to Boris, apparently 57% wanting to rejoin after only 4 years is a success.
That is the legacy of Brexit, is it not?
No.
So let's get into it.
In your book, you say that people have referred to you over the course of your career as a renegade, a buffoon, a thug, a bull in a china shop.
Thug? Why did they say thug? Oh yeah.
What does that say about you, Boris Johnson?
Well,
aren't you, in fact, making up quotes, lying to your party leader, wanting to be part of someone being physically assaulted? You're a nasty piece of work, aren't you?
And what did his sister say about him this week?
I don't think the Johnson DNA is really executive DNA, as the country has seen.
Well, let's talk about Brexit. Is, as you say, a defining part of your legacy. Isn't it fair to say that in your decision to go for the Out campaign, there was a pretty healthy chunk of personal ambition?
It was a big, what I'm trying to get over is that it was a terribly, terribly difficult decision. And I came down in favour of coming out.
He says it wasn't about personal ambition, but he has flip-flops. Have a listen.
I'm actually a bit of a fan in some ways of the European community. If we didn't have a European community, be in no doubt we would invent something like it. We would invent a means of association between the sovereign states of Europe overnight. We'd have some sort of organisation in Brussels overnight.
How would you vote tomorrow if there was a referendum?
I'd vote to stay in the single market. I'm in favour of the single market. I want to be part. I want us to be able to trade freely with our European friends and partners.
Millions of people put their faith in you. They believed in it. They believed what you said about it. And then it was chaos afterwards, as you acknowledge in your book. And you blame a lot of people for that. You blame David Cameron, you blame Theresa May later, you blame the EU. The one person you don't blame is you, and people will find that amazing.
Really? People are shocked that a narcissist doesn't blame themselves for their own actions. Reminds me of the old Chinese proverb, he who blames others has a long way to go on his journey. He who blames himself is halfway there. He who blames no one has arrived. Where do you think Boris lands? And it continues because it turns out Boris recognises and admits that actually he had no plan. Despite all the bravado from him and his contemporaries about how easy this would be and how simple it would be, even later on, Boris suggesting that this was as simple as an oven-ready deal, just needing to be put in the oven to be completed.
You told us that we should do this, and you hadn't devoted any serious thought to what came next.
Come on. So I wanted to win an argument.
Based on the premise that he didn't know what the deal would be. So he wants to win an argument about whether or not you stay in, but had no clue as to what that would look like. That's insane.
And I believed in freedom, and I believed that our country had a great, great future.
I believe, I have belief, you just need belief. We'll come back to that a little bit later on. And he digs himself further by talking about assumptions. And we all know what they say about assumptions.
Oh, you assume, do you? And what did I say about assumption being the brother of all f***ups?
It's the mother of all f***ups, stupid.
Well, brother, mother, any other sucker. It don't make any difference.
What we expected, and what I think, everybody expected, was that the Cameron government, having called a referendum a yes-no choice for the people, leave remain choice for the people, would bring forward a white paper.
Why? He didn't believe it. What made you possibly think that would be the outcome?
Because he's a naive idiot. That's why you would think that. You wouldn't be in a position of arguing unless you knew for certain that the plan was in place to get going. And it turns out there was no plan. But then he starts citing how they do it in Europe.
Because every other European leader, when they hold referendums, decides, once the people have voted, decides what to do and stays in office. So it's not normal for the Prime Minister, having asked for a referendum vote, suddenly to evacuate the stage.
Starting to see why I put this quote in. He's blaming everyone else. And on top of that, remember all the claims he made about what was going to happen once this was done, despite the fact he'd not actually seen a white paper or a plan for what Brexit was.
The bastion of independence. If we take back control on June the 23rd, we can also get rid of so much of the pointless rules and regulations that are holding back this country. This gentleman here mentions bananas. It is absurd that we are told that you cannot sell bananas in bunches of more than 2 or 3 bananas. You cannot sell bananas with abnormal curvature of the fingers.
This rule did exist. However, it was rescinded in 2011, and Boris knows that. Or maybe he doesn't.
Leave on June the 23rd, we can take back control of £350 million a week and spend on our priorities here in this country, including on the National Health Service.
We have built none of the 40 hospitals that he promised, and that $350 million a week, we did spend it. However, that money only went in whilst we're in the EU, and that means the money was always there. They just never wanted to spend it on the NHS.
We can take back control of our immigration system.
Because that's worked out really well, hasn't it?
Whereas the wages of most people in this country have not increased, and in some cases have actually been going down. And that's, of course, and they never see the actual, the experience of people in this country who have to use GP services, who experience the impact of uncontrolled immigration. That's why they support the EU at the moment.
What he's just said there is the words of Enoch Powell, that immigrants are taking positions in hospitals.
Do you accept that everyone watching this programme is poorer now as a result of Brexit and is likely to be poorer for the foreseeable future because of Brexit?
No, I certainly don't.
There are now more food banks than there are McDonald's in the UK. There are 2,500 food banks and there are 1,350 McDonald's. But apparently we're not poorer, we're richer for it. Then we move on to the economy, and his defence is wackadoodle.
Give you a statistic to the Office of Budget Responsibility, the government's own, formerly your own financial watchdog, says that imports will be 15% down in the long-term future than they would have been, and exports, and that the size of our national economy will be 3.8% smaller. You're shaking your head, but these are the facts according to the Office of Budget Responsibility.
It's not just the OBR. There's the IMF, the Bank of England, the OECD, the New York Times, the Atlantic Council, the Financial Times, Bloomberg, Washington Post, Oxford University, Cambridge University, LSE, the IFS, The Economist, British Chambers of Commerce, and Citigroup, just to name a few. All of them, according to Boris, is wrong, and he's right.
Can I just try and respond on Brexit and the type of Brexit that I wanted and why I still believe in it? Because when I was Prime Minister, we faced an appalling pandemic.
Now watch this. He completely ignores the OBR and he focuses on the pandemic.
And then, thanks to the genius of British scientists, we got some vaccines. And there was AstraZeneca and there was Pfizer and several others. And because of the type of Brexit that we had negotiated, which we had fought for, let me complete this point, we were able to license those vaccines weeks and weeks faster than any other European country at a time when many people were dying every day.
Said you could have derogated from the European regulation anyway.
We would never have done so. We would never have done so.
You could have
we were in the EMA. We would have been in the European vaccine program, and you know that fine well.
Here's Dr. June Rain, CEO of the MHRA, that's the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, poo-pooing exactly what Johnson said.
We have been able to authorise the supply of this vaccine using provisions under European law which exist until the 1st of January. So our speed or our progress has been totally dependent on the availability of data in our rolling review and the rigorous assessment and independent advice we have received. So I hope that clarifies the point about the European relationship.
But because we were out, we did things differently. And so by March 2021, we had vaccinated 45% of the UK adult population, and of the over 80s, probably getting on for 90, 100%, the EU had done 10%.
It's true we had a good head start, however it didn't last that long, and 6 EU states overtook COVID vaccination rates as Britain rollout slowed down because we couldn't keep up with production.
That enabled us to come out of lockdown restrictions faster and, to your economic point, to have the fastest economic recovery in 2021 in the G7.
And here comes another lie. If you look at what the OECD claims, Turkey, China, G20, Korea, Saudi Arabia, United States, India, the OECD area, European Union, France, Brazil, Australia, the Euro area, Indonesia, Germany, Italy, Canada, Japan, and there we are, near the bottom. We were on the slowest for economic recovery between 2019 and 21. And you can doubt me, but check your bank account. About 1 in 3 Brits have less than £250 in savings.
And that was because of Brexit.
Let's pick something else. Trade. This was going to be the great freedom. We've done 71 trade deals. 68 of them were rollovers from the EU deals. The others are tiny. We still haven't done a deal with America. We haven't done a deal with China. We haven't done a deal with India. Where is this great world you promised us?
The India deal is coming down the track.
Absolutely meaningless, and part of the reason is infighting in the Tory party. And part of the reason for that infighting, I'm sure Labour are going to have the same thing. As part of those trade negotiations, India wants to allow its citizens to come over and migrate to the UK. And as you can imagine, in the current climate, a lot of Brits do not like that idea.
The deals with America depend very much on what happens in the presidential elections.
No, it doesn't. He's talking bollocks again. The president organises those trade deals and begins a negotiation, but it's Congress that has to ratify them. And there lies in the problem for the UK. Either he's lying, or as an American citizen, which Boris was and technically is because he was born in New York, either he knows this and he's lying, or he's an idiot. Do you remember what he said in 2017?
We hear that we're first in line to do a great free trade deal with the United States. So it's going to be a very, very exciting year for both our countries.
And that was Trump in power. What about Obama?
Maybe some point down the line there might be a UK-US trade agreement, but it's not going to happen anytime soon because our focus is in negotiating with a big bloc, the European Union, to get a trade agreement done. And UK is going to be in the back of the queue.
And it's funny because other Brexiteers were touting the same line.
You apparently have the ear of Mr. Trump as well. How quickly can we get a trade deal with the United States?
Well, it's very interesting because quite honestly, if the British government went to Trump today and said, right, let's crack on, I think that certainly by the end of this year, if not a considerable time before, that trade deal could be done. If 90 days is too optimistic, believe me, it's nearer 90 days than Ivan Rogers' 10 years.
And things got wilder because Trump announced on LBC that you couldn't do the deal because of Boris.
And to be honest with you, this deal, under certain aspects of the deal, you can't do it. You can't do it. You can't trade. Well, I mean, we can't make a trade deal with the UK.
But if you look at the UK's economic performance since 2016, it compares very favourably with other countries that are still in the EU.
Apart from economies like Italy, Germany and France, who would be the go-tos if you're going to make a comparison with the UK and countries in the EU. But even then it gets worse because you can start to see that living standards are increasing within the EU and they're stagnating in the UK, with some UK households having up to £8,000 difference in living standards compared to if you were in the EU. And there are plenty of news articles talking about how the EU has helped transform living standards in the whole of Europe.
And the key thing about Brexit now is to take advantage of those freedoms.
But the problem with that is that we have 2 land borders with the EU. We have Northern Ireland and Gibraltar, and the more we diverge from the EU, the increased likelihood there is that hard borders will have to be put in place. You can't do that with the Good Friday Agreement, and you definitely shouldn't be doing that with Gibraltar.
And that's why believing in Britain is about doing things differently.
Now bear in mind, earlier he said there was no plan, and the reason you're looking at a clip of Oxford is because this is my home team, and that the simple truth behind Brexiteers is that if you believe hard enough, you can achieve anything. So is this why we haven't won the Premier League and the Champions League? Because we don't believe enough? Is the reason that we haven't signed Rashford or Messi or Ronaldo because we don't believe enough? Is the reason Oxford doesn't have a 4th stand simply because the fans don't believe enough? Is Pep Guardiola going to Man City now? Is his team talks all about just telling his players to believe and they'll win? Or is there actual nuance? Is there money? Is there tactics? Is there planning? Is that the reason why Man City, with its money, have been so successful? The fact that they keep claiming that you just got to believe to win is fucking insane. And the fact is, it's been pushed onto the public as an actual idea. It's all good and well to have the belief and to have positive feelings about your country or your team. It's really useful. But if you haven't got stuff to back it up, there is a huge problem. If you believe in this channel, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Hit the notification button and you'll never miss out on an unbelievable moment with me. For me, the cold hard truth is this was a car crash of an interview. Boris did awful, but to be honest, the journalist should have done better because there's plenty to fact check Boris on, and he didn't. Once again, thank you to all of my Patreon and YouTube subscribers. You keep this channel going and growing. If you'd like to become one, look at the link in the description. You could also just buy me a coffee. Once again, thanks for listening. Bye for now.